Welcome to the Stories of Starting podcast. I'm Heather Boyd. As a self-employed artist for the last 30 years, I'm fascinated with people's passions and creative projects. In this series, we discover how people like you have started new projects by thinking outside the box, going with the flow, and tapping into their childhood imagination. Hey there, so today I'm with my friend Suzannah Baum. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Heather.
Yes, we've been talking about this for ages. Finally getting around to it.
Yeah.
So Suzannah, I would like you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay. First of all, I'm very happy to be here. We really have been trying to get this together for so long. So finally we have. My name is Suzannah Baum, and I am a presentation and public speaking skills trainer, coach, and speaker. I help people position themselves as leaders when they have to give presentations. I help people, I kind of give a little gentle nudge to those who need the gentle nudge to be able to share their expertise, share their background, and share all their knowledge so that they're not holding it back just because of a fear of discomfort in public speaking. So I work with anywhere from entrepreneurs and artists and middle managers and corporate all the way up to VPs and executives and C-levels, because everybody comes to public speaking with a different issue, whether it's an issue of nerves or just an issue of how do I get my audience more engaged, how do I focus my message more. So it's really all about the technicalities of structuring your presentation better in a way that engages and connects with your audience.
That's awesome. And you give killer elevator speeches at We2 meetings, which is where we met.
Yes.
So Suzannah, I always like to backtrack a little bit and tell people how we did meet. So we met at We2, which is the Women's Entrepreneurial Exchange. And last week I interviewed Serena Miller. We're actually back here in her studio.
Thanks, Serena.
Thank you. And so we met probably at one of their first meetings, because you probably were a member before I was. Like, I've been a member since they were in those triangle buildings on the 40.
I was a little bit before that. A little bit before at the Nichols along the 40.
Okay.
Yes,
so
I think when Serena just took over.
Oh, amazing. So you've been a member a little bit longer, and I remember being super impressed with your public speaking and your whole concept and everything.
Thank you.
And so we've known each other since then. And also I went to a couple of your you were a judge in that competition, So You Think You Can Speak. Yep. I remember there was one, was it at the Comedy Works?
Yep, at the Comedy Nest. And once
both.
at the Comedy Works.
Yes, and
correct.
The Comedy, which is ironic because I frequently go to live comedy at the Comedy Nest. And so it's sort of like interesting how these two worlds kind of collide at one point. And then the third thing I wanted to mention is that I took your online course, which was Create a Signature Speech That Sells. And it was extremely useful when I gave my speech at We2 talking about YouTube. So I implemented your course 100% when I gave that speech.
Yay!
Yes!
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I really, I've really valued your friendship over the years and expertise.
Thank you. And I valued yours too, because over the years I've seen you sort of jump into the YouTube space and the podcasting space, and I always thought you were one of the pioneers in Etsy.
Okay, true.
And building your wire art in Etsy and watching you grow your digital empire has been really inspiring.
Oh, well, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Mutual appreciation.
Yes.
So Suzannah, I would love to hear about how you started in this whole adventure of become a public speaking coach.
Well, it's funny. The timing of this is funny because just about 2 months ago, I gave I think it was an 8-minute speech. I was given this opportunity to give an 8-minute speech at my speakers convention at the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. To get up on a stage, they allowed a few different speakers to do this, to get up on a stage and talk for what was supposed to be 7 minutes, but mine turned out to be 8, a little over time. And I chose. It was really an open topic, and I chose for one of the first times to really go deep into how this happened, how I came into this, because it's I started from a place where I hated public speaking. I avoided it. I didn't do it growing up. I was shy. I was quiet. I was a wallflower. I was most happy when people were like not anywhere paying attention to me, when they didn't notice me. I felt like when I did speak, people weren't listening. So, but I, as a kid, you don't necessarily rebel against that. You just sort of accept it, and that this was my place in life. I was just going to be shy, and I was going to be quiet, and I would listen to others, and I would watch others, because when I spoke, I felt like people weren't really listening or responding. So, anyways, so public speaking was very difficult for me. Speaking in school was difficult. You had to give presentations. I would read them. I would avoid them where I could. I would ask people to speak instead of me, anything that I could do. And then, but when you're in school, you can only push that so far, and then you get into the work world.
That's right.
And when you start doing that in the work world, it's kind of, you have to make a decision right there. Am I going to continue this behavior, which will get me nowhere in my career, or am I going to try to push myself into something that feels so incredibly uncomfortable and horrible? And I don't even want to take credit that I came to that realization myself. I mean, I think I knew in my head, I knew that I should get better at this, but I still didn't want to take the steps to put myself in front of a group until later in my 20s. I was working in marketing in an IT company, and every week we had a group, a company meeting, a staff meeting, and usually there were about 30 or 40 people there at the time, and I was in marketing, and my boss was always pushing me to speak, and I kept pushing it right back to him. And finally at my first performance review, he said, listen, you want to go somewhere in this company, I know you do, but unless you start talking, unless you start saying something at these meetings, no one will notice you. No one will think that you know what's going on. You won't have any visibility in the company. So then, based on the advice of a cousin of mine in California, who happened to be the president of his Toastmasters group in Oakland, he suggested that I go check it out, and it took a while for me to check it out, but I finally did. Here in Montreal, I went to, I had sort of earmarked a few different clubs that I was going to try out and see which one I liked. I started off at the McGill Toastmasters Club. I went to my first meeting. Everybody was just fantastic in the club, so fantastic. So between watching them at work and having to stand up and introduce myself was just so traumatic that I left, and I didn't come back for 6 months because it was really too much for me. But then, I went back to work and back to not speaking and the people not noticing me, and then I finally reached that point of greater frustration. And I went back to Toastmasters, and just the time was right. I felt that it was a good click with the people in the room. They were very supportive. They were very encouraging. They, I got applause every time I spoke. Not just me. I mean, that's the way of Toastmasters. Everybody gets applauded because you support.
That's right.
And it just kept me coming back. And so the value was in coming back. Right? Just always, it didn't feel good for many months, but I just kept coming back. And so from there, I got an opportunity. There was a woman in Toastmasters who was teaching a public speaking course at McGill.
Oh, cool!
For grad students, and she was looking to just offload it. She didn't want to do it anymore, and she kind of handed it over to me at a time when I was starting to explore the idea of how do I, merge my career, because somewhere along the way there was sort of a click or a light switch moment that made me realize that. Here I was in this place where growing up with feeling ignored, feeling unnoticed, and all of a sudden I was speaking and people were listening. And there was something about that was so very, very compelling to me on such a deep level that I did start to think about, can I do this for a living? I had no idea how to, but that was my first baby step into doing this, and there's a long story of how it snowballed from there, but that was the first step into getting paid, not very much from McGill, not very much, but getting paid to do this. So that was
cool.
that was pretty core. And then the next thing that helped me just sort of up level it was when I joined the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers.
CAPS, right?
CAPS,
Yes,
which is a community, and as we know from how we know each other from We2, the power of a community, like a real community that really of people who are doing what I wanted to do, people who are very generous about sharing their knowledge and their ideas and their insights, and just surrounding yourself with the right people really helped me. And you know, I went from a place where finding such a great community in Serena's group where I met you and so many other wonderful people to you know, adding that community to my life, which was huge.
Well, I remember at We2, just the thought of giving a 30-second speech for me was terrifying. And then, you know, gradually you get used to it. And it's the same with YouTube. You know, at first I was doing these videos. I wouldn't even show my face. I would just show my hands.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, exactly. And then I remember somebody told me, you know, if you want to, you know, connect with people, you really have to show your face. So then I started doing that. And now I do live streams. And so it's like this snowball effect, like how it grows. It's really amazing. And I actually remember one time when because you spoke a few times at We2 as well, and I remember one time you telling a story about the first time you realized that people were taking notes when you were giving us. That really touched me. Like I don't remember the context of it, but I remember you saying some women were taking notes and really paying attention to what you were saying. And I remember being so touched and impressed by that. You know, that's certainly a sign of success when people are actually writing down what you're saying.
Yeah, well, when I talked to you, when I said earlier about that light bulb moment of something that happened that really switched, it was this moment where I went to go speak to my first out of McGill Toastmasters speech. And it was a 7-minute speech to the McGill alumni young professionals group. Yeah. And so they were older, they were professionals, they came after work. Yeah. And there were these two women in the front row as I was giving my 7 minutes piece of the speech. They pulled out their pens, they started writing down what I said, and if I could just say that there was one moment that changed everything, it was that moment that these women wrote down what I said and I saw it. Yeah. And that was
it obviously touched me too, because I remember that clearly, you saying that and thinking, that's the true sign that you're making an impact on people.
Yeah, it was a huge moment. It was a huge moment that changed everything.
Wow, well, you certainly helped me with all that I do in many different ways, and I'm very, very grateful. And I find it so interesting too about that overlap, like we were saying about the Comedy Nest, because that was actually a CAPS event, wasn't it?
Yes.
So you think you can speak?
Yes.
Yes, that was super fun, and just the whole context of having it happen in a comedy club too. I think there's no coincidence about that too. And maybe talk a little bit about the value of humor in public speaking too, because not only as an icebreaker, you know, to relax the crowd and what have you, but also as a way to connecting with people on an emotional level when you put humor in a speech. So tell me about, you know, sort of the levels of humor that can go into different kinds of speeches.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me just back up if I may.
Certainly back up.
just to give a little bit more context on what So You Think You Can Speak was, because it was a pretty substantial event.
Very cool.
Put on by CAPS that we would do every year. I think we're on our 6th or 7th year, where we would rent a comedy club, and actually this year it was not at a comedy club for the first time, but it was a rented space with a stage.
Cool.
And anywhere from 6 to 8 speakers were, I guess, invited or applied for a chance to come up on stage, give a 5-minute speech, and then there was a panel of experts who would provide feedback. So there wasn't like a competition, although it's so easy to talk about it as a competition. There were no winners, but there was a lot of value, and we always packed the room because people wanted first to come and see, you know, these speakers who would put themselves up for such a vulnerability to put themselves up on stage for 5 minutes in front of such a large crowd, and to put themselves up in front of people who will give them feedback. The good and the bad.
Public feedback.
Public feedback, and so everyone could hear it. That was always a great event, because it's very exciting. You get excited and nervous for people on stage, and of course if you're ever someone on stage and one day, Heather, maybe you will come on stage. That's very nervous. But the first year we did it, I wasn't one of the panel of experts. I was on stage. I applied and I went on stage, and it was not easy. But not easy, but a fantastic experience. There's always those experiences that are not easy.
Yes,
that turn out to be the most valuable, right? The one you have to push yourself for, the one you're most nervous for, the one that kind of get you jittery. When you're done and you've learned from the experience and you can sort of process it, that's when we realize it's the best. Yeah, it's the best thing. So when you're asking about humor, you said what is the role of humor? Yeah. Well, humor it's a funny thing because we have this. There's a perception that we should always be funny in a presentation, or we should tell jokes, and it's certainly great to lighten up the mood. But we'll say the problem, but the challenge is it adds a lot of pressure on you, the speaker. Like, if you got to make them laugh, you want to make them laugh. How do you make them through the joke, the funny story? What happens if it's not funny? What happens if you tell it to one audience and they think it's hilarious, and you tell it to another audience of a different demographic and they just don't get it? Right? So, and that happened to me once, that at one of the times that I spoke at We2, and We2 being a group of very supportive people who are friends, have known each other, have grown together, and I started off one of the speeches with sort of a risque sort of joke. Yes. And it worked out well because everybody's friends and everybody knew what we were talking about. And then I went to another group and did the same thing, and it was like
crickets.
It was crickets. And and it was right at the beginning. So
awkward.
It was awkward, and it taught me a good lesson. Yes. Again, like the good lessons you learn when you make these giant mistakes in front of an audience. That sometimes it's not worth it to try to pack the humor in, because it may not work with every audience. So when you're in front of the audience, the priority really needs to be on creating a message that is more focused, more structured, but very engaging. Yes. And that sort of serves to connect with the audience. So maybe if you tell a funny story, or a story where something funny happens, or self-deprecating humor, that this is an easier way, a lot less pressure on you, the speaker. Yes. And if it doesn't go over as well with the audience, it's still part of a larger story. That's right. Some people will find it more amusing, some maybe less. I mean, it's still worthwhile to try to look at your stories and pull out what could be funny. That's right. And sort of tweak and massage it to make it, to really see if you could bring the humor out more. That's right. But to start with a joke or to really push funny parts of an audience, it's risky because there's so many different demographics that may or may not get it. So and the whole idea of not overly scripting, be it a joke or even your speech, you want it scripted to a certain sense, but not overly that you feel you have to follow it word for word. So that's interesting. Something I really admire when we do go to comedy is the comedians that, there are the comedians that have their regular jokes that are the same all the time, but then you have these comedians that completely improvise with the audience, and they like, often the hosts they choose hosts that are really good at that, like really just bouncing off the crowd, and that's, to me, is such a talent, that idea of improvising. So how would you say, like, what role of improvisation can take in a speech, because you don't want to go off the rails either. Yes. Yeah. So I don't love to leave room for improvising in a speech. I understand that when I'm in front of like a training group, and when I'm with a group for 2 hours or 3 hours or a full day, that of course I don't have a scripted speech. There's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of question and answer. So in that sense, there's improv, right? For sure. But in a 1 hour or half hour, when it's really, I have a specific message that I need to get through, a specific amount of time, and I want to sort of share a message, but maybe I also want the audience to feel something. I want to inspire them to feel something. I want them to do something. I'm very careful with what goes in, and I am a scripter. So when it comes to keynotes or half hour very specific presentations, I will script that. That 8-minute speech I did two months ago, I mean, scripted to the hilt. Now when I'm presenting it, there maybe some. I'm not presenting a memorized version. I don't script it in order to memorize. I script it in order to become so familiar with the content that even if I lose my place, I know where I'm supposed to go next. So it's practice in order to get used to the content and not to memorize, because you know, memorizing, if you memorize and you forget where you are, it could send you into a tailspin. Yeah. So so I guess that's the answer. I don't, for me personally, I don't feel comfortable with that level of improvising. The other risk is that you will improvise and it will take you off.
Well, exactly, going off the rails.
Exactly. Yeah. You go off course. You may find it hard to get back to where you wanted to go, and you may go over time, and that will piss off any audience.
Yeah, actually, we had a friend that was in a comedy competition. He went to a comedy competition in Ottawa, and he does comedy in Montreal, and so he's used to a certain reaction from the crowd. So he went to this competition, and he killed it. Like they loved him. He was amazing, but they clapped too long and applauded too long, so his speech or his stand-up routine went overtime, and he was disqualified.
No.
So it's like, oh my goodness, you know, he did so well, but because of the reaction, the Ottawa audio, and I've noticed it too, the Ottawa audiences are completely different than the Montreal audiences.
Really?
People say it's because they work for the government and they have these like really boring day jobs, and so they get out at night and they want to let loose. And, there's a noticeable difference between
the
audiences.
Energy level.
Well,
you know what? Years ago, I joined or I entered a Toastmasters speech contest.
Okay.
And I was going in with what I thought was a really good speech, really solid. Yeah. Had its funny moments. It was, you know, it was following the speech structure that I had studied. What had the past world champions done. And I went up, and it was, I think they have like 6 or 7 levels of competition. So this was the 3rd level. So it was already, we were advancing.
Yes.
I was up against a few big names in Toastmasters, and there were about 100 people in the audience. So it was my biggest audience yet. And I was having here's the other risk. I was having so much fun. Once I got my first laugh, there's something psychologically that happens to you that goes, oh my God, they love me.
Oh, jeez.
And so there was a moment where, you know, they show you these lights so that you know where your timing is. And I saw a light go on, and I thought to myself, you know what, I need to finish with a quote, because that's what it was in my, you know, in my script. And, you know, talking back to, I guess, the flexibility you have to have, but flexibility while knowing how much time you have left.
That's right.
So I could have just as easily not finished with that quote. But I did.
Okay.
I went over time by 3 seconds, and I was disqualified.
Oh boy.
And I was, if I could tell you, I worked so hard on that speech. I went and I practiced it at some, and I was devastated, like almost unreasonably so, because I was so hopeful that it would have been me. I got the laughs. I got the people, you know, they were in with me, but I messed it up, right? It was my fault.
So similar situation in a sense.
Similar situation. It's very upsetting to get. Now, in real life, 3 seconds is not going to disqualify you or turn off an audience.
That's right.
But
in a competition,
in a competition, or when the audience claps too much or laughs too much, and it just kind of switches your headspace, and you stop paying attention as much as you should to the timing and the content, because it's this beautiful moment of getting applause. It's like it's wonderful, but you have to be careful not to lose focus once that starts happening.
Just rein it in.
Rein it in.
Bit. Oh my goodness. That's interesting. How that happened to you too. Oh my goodness.
It was not a great time.
Wow. So do you think you seem to get a kick out of the reaction of the audience? Do you think you would do stand-up comedy one day?
No, I don't think so.
I ask everybody that.
Really?
I don't know, maybe because I'm obsessed with comedy. I just think it's so fun.
Not that kind of comedy. I mean, before I did this, though, I think there was a little foreshadowing over being on a stage, because I was taking acting classes, and I was taking improv and foundational acting classes where they'd make you act out a scene or with a partner or solo. And so there was, I guess maybe that's a little bit of foreshadowing. I didn't realize that my career was going to go this way, but I really did enjoy sort of being on a stage, the applause.
That's right.
Memorizing.
Okay,
For
cool.
that I had to memorize.
You'd have to,
and just that whole experience.
Well, I'm in awe of people that do improv. Sometimes we go to the one on Théâtre Sainte-Catherine on downtown, and they do every Sunday night. It's really interesting. They have an improv class. So from, I don't know, 5 to 7 or something, it's a free class, free improv if anybody wants to do it. Wow, and then they do a show after. So it's super fun. So I go and I'm always like, how do they do this? And then you have to have a good bank of knowledge about certain subjects too, because sometimes they could get political, they could get, talk about different subjects, and so they're really like these very well-rounded, people that can just improvise on any subject. Like, I find it fascinating.
It's fascinating.
It's so cool.
Improv done well is really fascinating.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so when you were like younger, like when growing up, when you were a kid, were you sort of aspired to be on stage in some sense, or were there maybe celebrities that you admired? Anything that might have also foreshadowed this direction?
When I was 16, I tried out for the school play, and I was in the school play, but my motivations were 16-year-old motivations.
Okay.
They were. It was the way to get closer to a boy that I liked.
Oh, well, there you go.
It was because he was in the play, very ulterior motive, and a group of friends a group of people who I wanted to get closer with, and the only way was to, being in the play really put me with them all the time. So I did enjoy the time up there, and that's why sometimes even growing up, I was like, I was super nervous getting up on stage, but always enjoyed it. But then getting up in front of a group to give a presentation or a school presentation was horrible. Just horrible for me. But getting up on the stage where I could at least then or in improv pretend to be somebody else. And then the shift came when I was like, okay, I'm going to go in front of a group and actually be myself. Not pretend to be somebody else. And actually be myself. And
that's so cool. I remember in my day they called them interest talks. These oral presentations. And we started when we were, I think, in grade 6. We had to start giving our first talks, and you had to do the Bristol board with the pictures. And I remember my first talk was about the Bionic Woman. And so I put up the Bristol board, and we had 5 minutes. We had to talk for 5 minutes. And I remember mine lasted exactly 1 minute and 40 seconds. I must have talked so fast and forgot half my speech.
Just wanted to get it over with.
I just wanted to get it over with. And even now, I'm more comfortable public speaking, but it's still, it's still a huge challenge. And one tactic that I use that I actually taught to my daughter Mimi when she has to do something intimidating or nerve-wracking is I always put myself in the position of feeling that relief of it being over. How am I going to feel this time tomorrow when it's over? And I just keep that feeling inside me to just to get over, not to be focused on the nervousness, but to be focused on the feeling of relief after it's over. So I don't know, do you have any tips for people for how to feel less nervous when they're public speaking?
I like what you're saying about focusing on something else to take your fear away. So I get called, again, a lot of my calls are because people have to give presentations and they're nervous, or they want to engage the audience better, they want to put their message together better. And so they'll often say to me, I get up there, because I ask a lot of questions about what is it like for you now? What is your process? How are you usually when you give presentations? And a lot of them will say, I go up to give a presentation and I just go off my slides and I just want to get it over with. And which is a real shame, right? Because when you have the attention of an audience, why not take advantage and share your knowledge, share your expertise, and allow yourself this opportunity to increase your visibility and the respect and the trust that people have for you. But instead, it's like, I'm feeling nervous, I just want to get it over with, or I'm feeling uncomfortable, I don't like it, I just want to get it over with. So I'm just going to go up there, dump all this information on my audience and leave. So, and that's unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
So what I will often tell my clients is, if you're, whatever the case, whether you're feeling nervous, you want to go up, you want to get it over with, is number one, be mindful of the fact that as speaker, you're sort of in this very prime, respected position. So you can choose to get it over with and leave, or you can choose to really focus on this message. And so when they are nervous, we work on shifting the mindset a little bit. So instead of thinking about how you feel and what happens to you when you're in front of the audience and how much you don't like it, let's focus instead on what is it you're trying to get across to this audience? Who are they? What is it about the message that they need to hear? What do you want them to do as a result of hearing your message? Do you want to change their feeling, their mindset? Like, so what are you trying to get across? And so just last week I was working with a client, and he has to give presentations all the time. He's a CEO of a local Montreal company of about, I think he's got about 18 or 25 people working there. And he gives presentations all the time. And nervousness was not his issue, but amount of information was his issue. He said that he comes to a presentation, he's got so much information, and so he tries to present, he goes over time, he sees eyes glaze over because he's just trying to pack it in. So with him also, it was about shifting the mindset to, you can't tell your audience everything. So let's dial it back and figure out what is that one key message you want them to leave with. And now let's start thinking about the presentation and building it with that in mind, instead of building it with, here's all the ways that you could manage your nerves, here's all the ways that you could feel better, because it's not about feeling better. It's not about you and how you feel and how hot your face is. It's really about the audience. Are you getting your message across so that it's a worthwhile use of their time? It's a big respect piece. And so
and I love that on your website it indicates that you focus on the audience, and it's sort of more an audience-centered speech, and what I love about your program, the Signature Speech That Sells, is the concept of the diamond structure. So creating a structure for your speech that gets the message across, because I remember part of the structure was having, like, say, three main points that you want to focus on, and that really helped me to structure my speech too, because we can only take in so much without, like you said, your eyes glazing over.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about your program and how people can find out more about it.
Okay, perfect. Well, there's actually two programs, but I'll start with the one that you and one in motion right now that hasn't been launched yet. But we'll start with the one that you took, which is called Create a Signature Speech That Sells. And it was all about how do you create a structured, focused speech, because again, so many people approach their presentations with too much information, feeling not confident. What do they put in? What do they take out? Sometimes you only have 20 minutes, so how do you express your life's work and insights in 20 minutes? How do you choose what goes in? How do you choose the right stories, choose the right examples, and keep the presentation flowing? Like, it's a journey, right? You're taking them on sort of an emotional roller coaster where you have to connect with them. You have to make them see that you relate to them and they relate to you. You understand what their issues are, and then and teach them something that will resonate with them, that is meaningful to them. Not things that you think they should know, but also how do you gauge, based on who is this audience, what they need to hear. And so there's, what you need to know, what they need to hear, and then we merge them together so that so that you educate them, you inspire them, and you persuade them to go ahead and do something. So that's what Create a Signature Speech That Sells is. When you mentioned the diamond, thank you for mentioning the diamond, which is one of the key tools, which is, it's a framework on how to structure a speech, 10 steps of 10 pieces that would need to go into your presentation step by step to help you get the information together, focus the message, and then almost like put it all together as a puzzle. So rather than coming to your presentation with everything that's in your brain and kind of trying to spit it out in the easiest when the way you find easiest.
That's
this is a structured way to really help you build and craft the speech.
Yeah, almost like a plug and play thing. Like I found it very easy to use and to follow. Yeah,
thank you. No, it's great. It's been a few years since that's been launched, and it continues to serve so many people well. I'm still getting feedback, even though you took it, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm still getting feedback from you. And from other people who've taken the course that they're still using it. And one of the best pieces of feedback that I got was one client who hired me. It was a corporate client, and I went in and I did a whole training about the diamond. And 2 years later, they asked me back to help with something else, and they said, every time we have to give a speech, we pull out the diamond. And
there you go.
And it just helps us figure out what to say, how to say it in so much faster and easier, and lands on the audience better than what they were doing before.
It's true. I should actually pull it out and experiment how I could use this with my YouTube videos, because I bet I could. I hadn't even thought about it, but I'm gonna try it. Let you know how it goes.
Absolutely. Well, what's been cool about that is not just how it works for presentations, but how it works for conversations too. So I've had some clients who never have to give presentations, but they have to speak to their boss, or they have to speak to the board, or they have to speak to one person in their team and explain things, and how they've used the diamond just to help them have better conversations too. So
so you're going to create a program about how to have conversations?
Well, so then that brought in a second program, which is kind of a smaller, sort of a mini masterclass, because there were so many people emailing me also just saying, I'm just so nervous, but I'm not at the place where I need to build a speech.
Right.
I don't need to craft a presentation right now. I just need to feel better about speaking. And so after a couple of years of that, and a lot of the times I would send them, I'd say, go to Toastmasters. And I would send them to Toastmasters. And I was like, wait, that's not a very good business move to send them somewhere else.
True, yeah.
So I'm like, I have everything I need to build just a smaller class than the signature speech. Signature speech was 6 modules of 1 hour each, plus homework. This is 4 modules, even shorter. Shorter video this time, so you get to see me on video, plus checklists and so on. But it really just addresses, like, okay, you're not feeling confident, you're not feeling comfortable, but you don't have a presentation coming. Well, let's work through it. So in that one, we talk about, just what you need to do physically to feel better.
Well, there are physical techniques.
Exactly. Exactly. So, the preparation, the practice, the breathing, and so on. And the structure does come into it, because having a structured, focused presentation really will help you feel better about presenting it. And a lot of my clients don't believe me when I first tell them that they'll come to me and say, well, I feel very nervous. And I'll say, okay, well, duly noted, but let's look first at what it is you're presenting. Because if you're presenting something that you instinctively know is not going to land on the audience, not going to resonate, not going to engage them, then of course you're nervous, right? You kind of know it in your bones that it's not going to work. But if you can create something stronger in structure, a more focused message, more engaging, more stories, then you come into this presentation with such a stronger product.
That's right.
That you will feel better about it. So that's why the structure becomes an important part of that. And it also talks about what do you do on the day of the presentation. Those 5 minutes before where you're sort of waiting for your name to be called and you're nervous and you're going over it in your head. So it's just it's a quick program. That one's called How to Rock Your Speech.
Okay, now is that up on your website already?
Also on my website. Yeah, so it's How to Rock Your Speech, how to banish your nerves, build your confidence, and really rock your presentation when you don't have something very specific. And that's been really, really good too. It's fast, it's to the point.
Yes.
It's 4 modules, quick videos, checklists, information.
Okay.
It's been something that I actually wish I had launched a few years ago instead of sending them to
well, never
but now
too
I know,
late, right?
Yes, now I know. Yeah,
that's awesome. So to finish up, maybe do you have a couple of quick tips that you would like to share with the audience?
Okay, so one of the tips is, very often when I meet people at wherever you meet people, networking or parties or business trips or whatever, and I tell them what I do, and they say to me, oh, you know what, public speaking, I don't have any problem with that. You know, I'm not nervous at all.
Yeah.
I can get in front of the audience and just say my thing. I'm confident enough, so I don't need the help. And that's fine. I mean, you have to want the help, right? But to those people, I don't necessarily say it to their face, but when that comes up, I am when that comes up, my first instinct is, again, no one cares how you feel, right? True. So when you get up in front of an audience full of confidence, are you still delivering a message that is meaningful and relevant to them, or are you just delivering a message showing everybody how confident you are? Because your role as a speaker is like the leader of that time period, the leader of that meeting, the whatever. You're in charge of everybody's time, right? So do you want them leaving this presentation going, I'm glad I was there because I got the information I needed. That was an important message for me to hear. I know what I need to do now, whether it's for work, for myself, or whatever. Or do you want them to leave going, wow, that speaker sure seemed confident? Yeah. Because that's not what they're ever going to say, right? They're not going to say that. They're going to want to know that the time they spent listening to what you have to say is relevant. So that's the first thing is put your feelings of confidence aside, whether you feel very confident or you feel not at all confident, and focus on the audience. That's what message does this audience need to hear? What would be of most value to them? How can you serve your audience with your expertise and make sure that this is a valuable use of their time? So that's one really, really important thing. The second thing is timing, right? I mean, it's important to be aware of how long it takes you to say something. And so for that reason, I used to tell people, you know, to make yourself feel better and manage the nerves, you have to practice your presentation so that you're saying it, you're hearing yourself say it, and it's super valuable in any presentation. But it's also necessary because you need to time yourself and see how long. Because the other way that so many speakers just dig themselves into a hole is that they go off on tangents, right? They improv. They maybe take too many questions from the audience without being mindful of the time they need. And so they get through half their presentation and either have to run through the rest or they get through half and they get cut off. Because time, you know, if you have a certain amount of time, whether it's the meeting organizer, whether it's your boss, whether, you know, it's your conference, you have to be done by a certain time, and it's up to you to be aware of how long it takes you to say what you need to say. And it's up to you to decide how to manage questions and discussion so that you can stay on time, and if you have to cut the time where you cut it. So that's important, simply because an audience will get very frustrated with you if you go over time and you don't notice. They will get very frustrated. They will start looking at their watches. And you've lost them by that point. So that's important to keep them in with you. And I guess the third thing is the value of stories. Whether it's your story, whether it's a story of a client, a story that will be meaningful to the audience, that shares that whatever issue they're going through, here's a story that is similar to that, so that they could feel that you really understand where they're coming from, because you're sharing the right stories in the presentation, which also allows you to move from, you know, information, which can get a little heavy, you know, information and facts and data get a little heavy. Once you pull into a story or an example, it shifts it shifts the attention a little bit and can help bring the audience back to you if they were starting to sort of fade out under all the information. A story can be very powerful. A story done well can be very powerful to bring their attention back, to really emphasize a point, and to help even make it more entertaining.
Storytelling is such a powerful tool, like in business. I remember a mutual friend, Pat Snow, did a whole like workshop about storytelling for business, and I found it fascinating. And I interviewed a friend also who is part of the Storyteller Guild of Montreal, Rob Cloney, and so he does a lot of storytelling. He's a teacher, so of course he uses storytelling in his teaching as well. But I think it's such a powerful tool, and it just keeps people engaged and interested, and it makes things more relatable. I think.
Absolutely. And there's really a lot of different structures structures and pieces to storytelling. And even within CAPS, we bring in storytelling experts, and
cool.
It's really, it opens up a whole new avenue to whatever it is you're trying to present.
Yeah.
When you can really create a story that is so colorful.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And that there's action and it's a very valuable tool.
I love it. Amazing. Yeah. Well, that sounds like an amazing place to finish off. Yeah. So Suzannah, I'm going to just have you tell people where we can find you online and off.
Perfect. Okay, so online it's just put in my name just about anywhere, and so it'll come up. So Suzannah Baum, so that's SUZANNAH BAUM. So SuzannahBaum.com. On Facebook, that's my personal page, but Suzannah Baum Public Speaking on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Easing into
YouTube.
Instagram. Oh, YouTube. Yes, youtube.com/Suzannah Baum.
Awesome.
Easing my way into Instagram, little by little.
Okay.
And all the information on my courses are there. You just look under products, and you'll see information on the signature speech course. You would see the information on the Rock My Speech.
Yes.
How to banish your nerves.
Amazing.
And everything can be there. And also on my website is my contact form and my phone number. So if ever anybody wants to,
and beyond,
in Montreal and beyond.
Awesome.
So if you ever want to get in touch with me, just everything you need is right there.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Great to see you.
You too.
And thank you, Serena, for letting us use the
studio.
Thank
you, Serena.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Stories of Starting. If you would like to inspire others with your story, big or small, be sure to reach out via storiesofstarting.com. Until next time, always remember, your story matters.